There we go. Hey, NFL and Falcons fans, welcome to another episode of Atlanta Sports Unlimited. Atlanta Sports Unlimited channel. This is NFL Jocks and Pigskins. It's, early in the morning. Not really. It's noon here on the East Coast, but 11 a.m. where Chicago is. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom Pollen, and behind the scenes, as always, our producer, Chris Smitherman. So, Tom, how are you doing today?
We got Zozo here.
Zozo here as well.
I'm doing great. It's really nice out now. It's supposed to get snowy later, but hey, what can you say? I live in Chicago. That's what happens here.
Right, yeah. It's been nice here in Atlanta. 60 degrees during the day. Yesterday was a little colder, but
I don't want to hear it.
Thursday it was in the 60s. Yeah, it was nice.
Ooh.
Really nice.
Oh, terrible. 60s. I bet everybody's wearing their jackets.
Not me, but everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So we have a full show today, as always. I'm back after. I'm really sorry that I missed last week's show. I know I heard Mad Mike. I haven't been able to catch the replay yet, but I've heard Mad Mike was a great guest as always.
Yeah. Well, Mad Mike is always great to work with. Stomach flu is just miserable. So, I mean, that's just terrible to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had a flu test. I had a COVID test. Both were negative. So the doctor believes it was the stomach flu. The positive, though, was it got me back into the doctor's office. I haven't been to the doctor in more than 10 years.
Wow.
The doctor was laughing at me. He's like, when was your last physical? I was like,
I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
Guess what?
What's that?
It happens more and more as you get as you start getting up there, you start climbing that age tree. Yeah.
So I'm at the age now where I probably should go to the doctor every year. I avoided it in my 20s because I was a healthy person. I have no pre-existing conditions. So
I didn't go see the doctor much in my 20s either.
Yeah, I didn't. My wife has been pushing me to
but of course, they were still using leeches and bloodletting and all that. But,
right. They couldn't do anything for you back then anyway, right? So the positive of the being sick last week, it got me back to the doctor. I now have a doctor here in Marietta, so I will be getting a physical done in March.
That's good to hear. Good to hear. So, but, as I say, it's a good thing you got a doctor there now, because believe me, you're probably going to end up going to see more and more. And it happens.
Yeah.
It's the best of us.
Yeah. I think one of the questions was, have you had a prostate exam yet? I was like, I'm like 9 years away from that. Don't push it. Don't push it.
From when you have your first colonoscopy.
Right. From what I understand, that happens when you're 40, and I'm 9 years away. I'm far away off from that.
When it comes to colonoscopies, aloe baby wipes. You will thank me later.
Okay. Tom's got the inside scoop on the
inside scoop. Baby wipes with aloe.
Okay. It's good to know.
You will thank me.
So let's talk some football here.
Yeah, let's do that. That's what we're here for.
We had I don't want to use too much hyperbole. It wasn't like a fantastic Super Bowl. But it was a good game. I enjoyed it. We had a little bit of defense, had some offense, had some exciting plays, but it wasn't like a, modern day first team to 40 kind of game, which is nice to see. So it was an enjoyable game. And, I thought the best team won, but the Bengals played really well too. And they had a great season. And I just kind of want to get started, and I'd love to hear from our commenters as well what your reactions were to the game. We don't want to recap it too much because it's been a week, but a lot of storylines from the game, a lot of reaction to the Bengals and the likelihood of them getting back, and the reaction to Cooper Kupp winning MVP and Matthew Stafford being a Super Bowl winning quarterback now. What were your reactions to, you can take it in any direction you want. What was your reaction to the game?
Well, considering that Matthew Stafford was playing without Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee to start with.
Yeah.
having Odell Beckham out there really was an advantage for the Rams offense. When Beckham went down, and he had nobody. It became terrible because Van Jefferson, well, at first interception, Van Jefferson never fought for the ball, never came back for the ball.
Yeah.
So I put that interception more on Van Jefferson, not going after the ball, not fighting for it.
And before that play, I mean, Stafford had like one incompletion, which is just a throwaway to avoid a sack. He was just red hot to start the game, and then Beckham gets hurt, and that pick happens.
He had nobody to go for. He had nobody to go with. What is it, Skoronski or? Terrible. God, the guy has no hands.
And I mean, it was arguably his fault on the second pick.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came right off his hands. Guys got hands of brick. So I actually think Stafford, giving what he had, basically Cooper Kupp and two running backs, did pretty well. Which, surprising coming from me.
I think a lot of people walked away impressed with Matthew Stafford, and rightfully so. I would push back on, have you seen the narrative about Stafford, now in the Hall of Fame conversation?
No, not yet.
Well, not yet. You haven't seen or he's not in the conversation?
I don't think he's in the conversation yet.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. And this isn't anything new. We do this every single year with every single quarterback, unless it's Tom Brady. We already know he's going to Hall of Fame. Yeah. But over the last 10 years, it's the winning quarterback is the next great thing, and he's a Hall of Famer or not. And it was interesting. I follow a lot of Falcons fans, and I think the trends that pop up on Twitter, right, are the trends that your followers are talking about. Yeah. And they were talking about, Matthew Stafford versus Matt Ryan and where they stand, in Hall of Fame in NFL history, and which one is a Hall of Famer. Are they both Hall of Famers? Is Stafford ahead of Ryan now because of the Super Bowl win? What do listeners? I want you to weigh in on.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? And Tom, I mean, where is Stafford now in the same tier as? I would say before he wasn't. Is he now in that tier with Matt Ryan because of this?
No, I felt. Is he in the tier with? Oh, is Stafford in the tier with Matt Ryan?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Ryan has done more. Has thrown for more. I think Ryan is still among the top 5 to 10 in passing. I haven't looked at the stats lately. I haven't looked at the stats after the season. But one of the things that stands out is Matt Ryan is one of the best in the game ever at fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives. I mean, he is a clutch quarterback. Plus, he's got the air yards to put him in the category. God, I can't talk this morning. To put him in that category. So I'm saying, I think Stafford needs to show. Stafford has thrown for a lot of yards in his career, but he really hasn't. This is the first time he's actually been able to show himself on a good team.
Right.
And
right. Yeah, it's kind of hard to evaluate Stafford because part of me wants to say, well, his numbers are inflated because of all the attempts. It's so many attempts early in his career when he was throwing for 5,000 yards or close to 5,000 yards because he was throwing 700 times a season.
Right.
He had to throw that many times because his team asked him to. It's not really his fault.
His team never had a running game.
Right. It's not his fault that his team needed to throw 45 times a game.
Right.
And he's racking up all those yards. So
exactly.
Pantera weighing in here. He's 10,000 yards behind Matt Ryan. I think
as I said, I haven't looked at the latest stats. I haven't looked at the season-ending stats yet, career stats. I haven't updated any of that yet. So, but I knew Stafford was still plenty behind Ryan. Ryan's among the top passers in NFL history. I mean, he's passed Hall of Famers in the passing game. So, I say Ryan is definitely a Hall of Famer. Stafford, I want to see a little more of, but Stafford has a little more time. Let's see what he does next year. As I said, Stafford impressed me in the Super Bowl because he kept his head and didn't try to do too much, which was one of the keys that I had brought up in my article breaking down the Super Bowl, asking, saying Matt Ryan needed to leave his gunslinger, gun belt and holster at home, which he did. Zozo, you agree? Yeah. Okay. And considering, as I say, he didn't have Woods, he didn't have Higbee, and then all of a sudden he didn't have Beckham. I don't know how he put that last drive together, to tell you the truth. Cooper Kupp really just, I don't know if it was possible to say he upped his game, but, what Cooper Kupp did to get open and catch passes on that final drive was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely incredible, especially when the Bengals should have been honing in on just him. I mean, the Rams had no running game. McVay tried to get a ground game established. And
that was another problem with having Beckham out.
That's true.
Because all of a sudden you really,
they weren't,
you couldn't sell the run game.
Well, they weren't scared to have, they didn't think they had to play anybody really back.
Right. Exactly.
To guard that pass that Beckham, had, the catch he had for a touchdown early in the game, that if that is there all game, then the running game would have maybe opened up a little bit.
Right. But since he was able to stack the box, so it was just impossible for the Rams to do anything on the ground.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, McVay tried though.
He tried.
Like every single second down, no matter if it was 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 1, it was a running play for Rams because they were really trying to get something on the ground.
Yeah, he definitely tried.
And Cooper Kupp got the big ground conversion.
Yes, he did.
Down to extend that drive that ended up being the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, and that's why I say Cooper Kupp should have been the MVP. I know a lot of people said after the game should have been Aaron Donald. No. Cooper Kupp did everything he could possibly do except for complete a pass to Matthew Stafford. Cooper Kupp was, there was nothing else you could ask of him that, with everybody injured, with no real targets for the Cincinnati to concentrate on, he was still able to get open, still able to produce yardage, especially at the end of the game when they really needed it.
Yeah, Aaron Donald played great. I would have loved a defensive player winning MVP, but I thought Cooper Kupp was deserving. I mean, two touchdowns in the game and scoring the game-winning touchdown, and that drive again, the 4th down conversion was a huge play, and that was just a run end around to him. So I think Cooper Kupp was definitely the MVP of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there was no argument from me, even though I've seen a lot of people say after the game, and basically because of the last, couple of series and especially the last play, Donald collapsed the pocket. But, I know you'd like to say Aaron Donald, but Cooper Kupp just did everything. Cooper Kupp made that offense go when it was difficult to do anything. And when Cincinnati knew that he was the only real weapon on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Donald and the defense did a terrific job of getting pressure on Joe Burrow in the second half and keeping the Rams in that game, because the Rams were down by 3 early in the second half, or down by 4 early in the second half, and Stafford throws the second interception. Could have easily turned that into a 2-score game right there. And the defense comes up with a stop. And then if the Bengals had put together any kind of drive in the second half, they could have gone up by more than 4.
They could have
gone up by at least 7 with a field goal. And they had a kicker that's making from, 60 yards away. It seemed
Peterson's been money all season.
Yeah. So, I mean, they didn't have to even put together a great drive in order to get some points and go up by a touchdown, where the touchdown would tie the game instead of giving the Rams back the lead. But
the Rams were able to put more pressure on Burrow in the second half. They made a couple of adjustments at halftime that they were able to put more pressure on Burrow. They started bringing guys from different directions on Burrow, and it kind of confused the Cincinnati line a little bit. It was a lot tougher on them to move the way they were. So I give the Rams credit on defense for making the adjustments they needed to make.
Let's talk officiating a little bit here, and then I want to transition into the Bengals and the Bengals' future. What was your take on the officiating in the game?
Big miss on a call. T. Higgins should have been called for OPI. That wasn't a touchdown, unfortunately.
Right.
And I read the excuse from the official saying later, well, he raked the front of his helmet. He didn't grab. No, he turned. He turned his head, and Ramsey's head got turned, and he got pulled down, and that's should have been offensive pass interference. And the Bengals really caught a lot of momentum early in the half. They should have rode that to a win. And as I say, again, I give the Rams credit and I give Stafford credit for not coming apart and for staying within himself as the game went on. But the defensive holding at the end that kind of gave the Rams a new set of downs inside the 5, I thought was terrible. We have seen that play all year of guys reaching around the back and then swatting the ball down. Mm-hmm. We've seen it all year. It's never been called holding. It's called great coverage. It's been called great coverage all year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's defensive holding. The call on Eli Apple as far as pass interference, that was definitely a good call. So overall, the hell of it is, I think the game was officiated well until except for a couple really bad blown calls that are just out there that, they didn't do anything about, and they're just going to be sitting out there on tape from now on. And, I think they let both teams play.
Yeah, right. You're saying exactly what I would say if you asked me this question. I'm just laughing because you sound like a major league pitcher that's like, I pitched a great game. I threw 100 pitches. 97 of them were great. Well, the other 3 were home runs. Well, you gave up 3 home runs, so you didn't have a great day. So like the officiating, okay, they got right 90% of 97% of the time, but the 3 they missed maybe were really bad. And I felt like they were too loose with letting them play early in the game. But that was the standard that they set.
Yeah.
Then they didn't follow that standard in the final 3 minutes of the game.
No, but as I say, there was only one bad call in that final series for the Rams.
I agree with that. Yes. Yeah.
That defensive holding was terrible.
And I mean, that set up the, that was 3rd down where that play was an incomplete pass. It would have been 4th down. And the Rams would have, I'm sure surely they would have gone for it. But they would have had a really interesting play call decision to make with that play.
Right. Would have been a lot more difficult to do from where they were.
And I saw a lot of Bengals fans complaining about that call. It felt like they were, jabbed of the game. And I agree that was a bad call. But
again, they got away with one at the beginning of the second half.
Just about to say that. The only reason why the Bengals had the lead was because of that awful offensive pass interference call at the beginning of the second half. And that to me is more of a bigger miss because that directly leads to points. The Rams don't have an opportunity to overcome that adversity. You gave the Bengals a touchdown by not calling that play.
Right.
The defensive pass interference was a bad call, but the Bengals had more chances to hold the Rams out of the end zone. That wasn't 100%, like that didn't directly lead to points. Indirectly it did, but the Bengals had their chances to overcome that adversity and they didn't. The Rams had no shot of overcoming an awful offensive pass interference call on Jalen Ramsey.
Exactly. That sums it up. There's not much you can say about it.
So from the Bengals perspective, we talked about the Rams getting pressure on Joe Burrow in the second half. And I think that has to be, we're not going to say anything different than anyone else did all week long. That has to be the focus of the Bengals offseason, is improving that offensive line.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it was Bill Polian that said, right now Joe Burrow is on track to be the next Andrew Luck, and that's actually not a good thing. As great as Andrew Luck was always injured, and he retired around 30 years old. We don't really want to see that from Joe Burrow. The Bengals, of course, don't want to see that from Joe Burrow. So the Bengals have to emphasize getting an offensive line in free agency and in the draft.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Because as I say, the offensive line kind of fell apart in the second half once the Rams made a couple of, small adjustments. That was it. They had nobody elite who could take control on that offensive line, and made life rough for Joe Mixon. He had a couple of nice runs, but he wasn't as effective in the passing game as he usually was, because the Rams were able to watch that. The Rams didn't worry about Mixon running on them because of the offensive line, and they had a superior defensive line and defensive, linebackers. So you can go ahead and kind of cheat on Mixon a little bit, and that just made life, tougher for Burrow. I do want to say one thing. I know Zach Taylor caught a lot of heat for that fourth down decision on the Bengals' first drive. He shouldn't have caught a lot of heat for that. He should not. Because I watched the play. Burrow made the mistake. Burrow was trying to force the ball into a double covered chase, and T. Higgins was standing wide open on the sideline, about 3-4 yards past the sticks. Mm-hmm. So that was a bad read by Joe Burrow. That was not a bad play by Zach Taylor.
Well, what do you think of the 3rd and 1 and then the 4th and 1 at the end of the game? I think Zach Taylor deserves I think he deserves a lot of flack for not necessarily the play call in that situation, but you brought up Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon wasn't on the field for either play. And the excuse was that they were in the hurry up offense and they didn't want to substitute or whatever. And Joe Mixon isn't their usual 3rd down back anyway. They wanted the pass blocking back, but what you end up doing is on 3rd and 1, you're trying to fool the other team into thinking you're not going to run, and you give the ball to your inferior running back. Yes. That's Joe Mixon, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's that whole final 3 plays was puzzling to me, because that 2nd and 1, when they went deep and there was nobody there for the ball, it was almost a throwaway play. And you're at a point in the game where you just need a field goal. You just need to get it within range from McPherson. Yeah. And you didn't have far to go to get in McPherson's range.
Yeah. Right.
So, then not having Mixon on the field, you couldn't have gotten Mixon on the field for 3rd down. I mean, because you had the long incompletion. But, then what they tried to do was just ridiculous. Those last 2 plays were terrible.
Yeah.
Just awful. And the Rams are kind of looking for that 4th down play. Bengals offensive line had no chance in that final play. There was nowhere to go with the ball.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow did suffer a knee injury. I think that's worth noting, and it did seem like maybe he wasn't as mobile in the final couple of drives after that injury. But I just remember the 4th down earlier in the game where everything just opened up and Burrow just goes right up the middle.
Yeah.
Couldn't the Bengals put themselves in a situation where that would happen again, or at least roll out Burrow to one side so you can get him away from the pressure? Why is he sitting in the pocket on that final 4th down play?
I agree with you. I agree. You were playing right into the Rams' strengths on both those plays, on the 3rd and 4th down. And that just, that is on Zach Taylor. And you got to give your guys a chance to do what they do best, and he didn't do it in those two situations.
I'm not sold on Zach Taylor. He got a long contract extension this week. Congratulations to him on that. And, he had a great season and the Bengals did too. But to me, the Bengals franchise is 100% all Joe Burrow right now. And got sacked 70 times this season, including the postseason. Yep. You have to protect that investment. It was an interesting discussion on Twitter, should they have picked Penny Sewell and not taken Jamar Chase? I mean, Jamar Chase gets them to the Super Bowl, and people kept bringing that up that, I think it was Booger McFarland said, you can't win having your quarterback get hit this much. Well, they did. They did win all the way. They almost won the Super Bowl getting their quarterback hit this much. But the thing is, year in and year out, Burrow is not going to be healthy getting hit this much. It's
not going to do it.
It's not a long-term recipe for success. So like the Jamar Chase, I think we were wrong. We said draft Penny Sewell. With Penny Sewell, they don't go to the Super Bowl. They needed Jamar Chase to go to the Super Bowl. But now they have to get an offensive line. They have to protect Joe Burrow because without him, the Bengals are still that same organization that can't compete in the AFC North. Joe Burrow is the difference right now for that organization.
Yes, it is. Yes,
if the organization is going to follow Joe Burrow into greatness, then they have to give him what he needs, and he absolutely needs an offensive line.
I don't necessarily think we were wrong about Penny Sewell.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying we're wrong about Penny Sewell. I'm just saying that
because you're not going to get that kind of offensive lineman this year.
Well, we said that the right pick would have been Penny Sewell, and I think that's what we were wrong about because Jamar Chase has been a great pick. That's what I would say about that. Penny Sewell would have been a great pick.
Wide receivers later in the draft.
But do they go to the Super Bowl without Jamar Chase?
No, not this year. No, they don't.
Okay,
but they were fortunate that Burrow stayed healthy.
Yes. I'm just looking at this year. I'm just looking at this year.
This year, yes.
The impact that Sewell would have made versus the impact Chase made, they made the right decision.
Right. Okay. This year. But if they can't find a way to keep Burrow clean from going forward, no, it doesn't matter because he's not going to have time to get the ball to Chase.
Yeah, that's
he's
right.
He's not going to have the time to get the ball to T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
And that may have been the problem with that fourth down play on the first drive is Burrow probably did. I don't think Burrow had a lot of time. So he went for Chase. He went for double cover. Chase was double covered. I don't think he ever saw T. Higgins. You didn't have a chance to see T. Higgins. And that was the problem. So that's, going forward, he's going to be out of the game by 30 the way he's going.
Yeah.
They have got to clean up, get that offensive line, especially since you still need a running game to go with it. If you're going to make Higgins and Chase being at their best, being at their peak, you need to actually keep the defense honest a little bit and make sure Joe Mixon has places to run. You're getting him 4 or 5 yards of crack. If you're not, then you change the tone of how the defense plays against you. Then they can put that extra man in the coverage and make it harder for Chase to get the ball, make it harder for Higgins to get the ball. Mm-hmm. Make it harder for Chase to get his yards after catch. Chase was number 3 in the NFL in yards after catch this year.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp was first. But
Cooper Kupp was first in everything.
I know. Chase was 3rd in yards after catch. Yeah, but you're not. That's not going to keep happening the way the Bengals offense is constructed now. They have got to build a line. I think they got everything else. You got a running back, you got a quarterback, you got receivers.
Yeah.
You can sell out this year in the draft for linemen.
Right. And they have free agents on defense. I don't know 100% who's coming back and who's not. So they might need to fill some holes on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, offensively, I probably not. I don't think they have to go crazy and make like the entire draft offensive line, but The first pick has got to be an offensive lineman at 31, and probably in the second round, if there's another good guy there for them, that pick too. And don't sleep on free agents either,
right?
Because that's probably the best way to do it to fix the offensive line quickly.
I don't know what their cap situation is right now, but yeah, I mean that's a great way to fix it. You're not going to get a difference maker left tackle where they're drafting. You should be able to get solid starters where they're drafting.
Right.
So, you can go that route. And you're still going to be able to improve that offensive line. You're going to improve that team.
And be creative too. I mean, the Chiefs saw how poorly their offensive line played last year. They traded their first round pick for was Orlando Brown, right? Last year. So don't sleep on possibly doing something like that.
Right.
If you're the Bengals.
Yeah, you can. So there's a lot of possibilities. But see, I vote, and my problem is I'm old. Okay.
That's your problem.
That's my problem. I'm old school.
Yeah, I understand where you're going. I know what you're going to say, that you don't draft a wide receiver in the first round, right? The Cardinals
build from the inside out. You build your lines, then you go from there. And that's, I know we see it every year where we see these highly rated receivers go, high in the draft every year, but you still got to build a line. You've got to be able to protect your quarterback. You still got to, if you have a quarterback that you think is your franchise guy, you better do something to protect him. Yeah. Or else you're kind of defeating the purpose.
Right. And with Burrow too, he's already torn one ACL. Seriously, well, maybe it wasn't serious injury, but it looked like it could have been a serious injury in the Super Bowl. I think they escaped it being a serious injury.
Yes, I think they did.
And I think if that doesn't scare the Bengals into getting an offensive line, then nothing's going to, because he's played 2 years and he almost ended both seasons with serious knee injuries.
Right. Exactly. So, I think the Bengals are going to do what's right. I think they'll start looking at linemen. They'll bring in some line. It's going to be interesting to see once we start breaking down free agency, which I haven't done yet, and kind of seeing where everybody's cap situation is, seeing who's going to be available, and getting an idea of who's going to be out there that the Bengals might be able to sign. I would say at least one signing is going to be, on their offensive line.
Yeah, I would
one way or another.
Yeah, at least one would be my guess too. Yeah. So the title of our show is ranking Super Bowl performances and ranking the new head coaches. So we're going to rank the new head coaches here in a minute. But to recap our Super Bowl discussion, so I'm ranking Cooper Kupp first. I'm going to put Aaron Donald second, Matthew Stafford third, and I'm going to put I'll put Joe Burrow next, and then the referees fifth, and last. I'm ranking 6 things here. I'm going to put Zach Taylor last.
Put Zach Taylor last.
I'm putting Zach Taylor behind the officials. Zach Taylor, I did not think had a good Super Bowl.
Neither do I. And I think the Bengals did well, kind of despite Zach Taylor in a few ways. Zach Taylor almost cost them a couple of games in the regular season because of kind of holding back and going, into a shell and not being aggressive. And I say it's going to be interesting seeing him going forward. The players believe in him. So, that makes a big difference if you got your players who are looking good and believe in your head coach. That does make a difference, but it's still the coach's job to put his players in the position to make plays, be successful. And I don't think he did that as well this year. As I say, not doing as much with Mixon. Mixon was gaining some yards on the ground. He didn't stick with it.
Part of my issue with Taylor is just his sideline demeanor. He just always has this like look of like, I just, I don't know what I'm doing kind of. Almost. He's like, am I wrong that like it just comes across as like kind of disgusted, kind of like not sure what to do, kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes that's the way people look. Just, it's called resting bitch face.
Well, I don't like his resting bitch face. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of his silent.
It's not that they intend to look like they don't know what's going on or they're disgusted or anything. It's just that that's the way their face is.
Well, I guess I just don't. It's his poker face. Every coach has their poker face, right? I guess I don't care for his poker face. Belichick, Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, they have much better poker faces.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Zach Taylor just.
Lovie Smith always did here in Chicago.
Well, that is a great transition into our new coaches, because Lovie Smith is one of the 9 guys.
He is.
That is going to be a new head coach in the NFL next season.
Yeah, Lovie Smith always looked like everybody kind of wondered what he was listening to in his headphones when he was watching the game. Guessing different songs that he could be listening to, Girl from Ipanema and that kind of thing. But it's going to be interesting for Smith, because he doesn't plan on hiring a defensive coordinator. He's going to call his own defenses.
That never works.
No, it doesn't. And
Ask Dan Quinn. Ask the Falcon fans who saw Dan Quinn try to do that.
Right.
19.
Exactly.
Disaster.
Smith intends to still run his defense. And that's one of the problems Smith had here in Chicago, is he knew nothing about offense. He couldn't hire an effective offensive coordinator. All right. He didn't know offense. I don't have a good punchline for it.
Well, it's been a theme for a few coaching hire cycles now, but I mean, there were 9 openings this year. 6 of them went to coaches with offensive background.
Yeah.
2 of the other ones were just defensive promotions. So it wasn't necessarily they were promoting or hiring the guy because they liked his defense. It was maybe more of, well, we want to go with a head coach that's on our coaching staff already. Then that's the case for Lovie Smith, Dennis Allen, the other one in New Orleans. So Chicago standing on an island here as the only team that hired a defensive coach outside of their organization.
Yeah, they did. But Ryan Poles insisted that he thought Matt Eberflus. I got to get used to saying that. That's one of the tougher names we've had to say here in Chicago as far as head coaches.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus, he's had his eye on him for a long time as a potential head coach. So when he got the general manager's job with the Bears, that's when he stepped in and said, this is the guy I want. And fortunately, because I think a couple of guys in the Bears organization wanted Dan Quinn, we escaped that one by the skin of our teeth. But, he liked Eberflus. He liked how the defense went in Indianapolis, but also thinks he has a solid football mind, that he's just not going to be all about defense. He's going to have control of the team. So I'm willing to sit, say let's see what happens. But Ryan Poles saw a lot of things that he liked in him that goes beyond what he saw on the football field. So let's see if he's right. I mean, it's the first big move by the new general manager here. So let's see what happens with it.
Well, I mentioned those 3 defensive hires as head coach. Let's name the other 6. We have 2 McDaniels, one McDaniel with no F, and then McDaniels, Josh McDaniels, a
Right.
guy that I think most NFL fans or diehard fans will know very much about. He's been at the center of the Patriots dynasty over the last 10 years. He's going to Las Vegas, coaching the Raiders. Mike McDaniel is going down to Miami to replace Brian Flores, controversially. Former Mike McDaniel, a former offensive coordinator in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, coaching tree there.
Yeah.
So that's
apparently he's been with McDaniel for Shanahan for a long time.
Yeah. So that's kind of been a popular move, hiring a Shanahan assistant. Hiring a McVay assistant has been popular as well. And Sean McVay's offensive coordinator from the Rams, Kevin O'Connell, is going to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep.
Brian Daboll, offensive coordinator from the Buffalo Bills, heading to the New York Giants. And I am missing one, I think. What is the one that I forgot?
Doug Peterson.
How can I forget Doug? Doug Peterson, the Super Bowl winning coach from Philly. He's going to Jacksonville.
Yep, exactly. And I think we've talked about the Peterson hiring. Well, I don't know, maybe I talked about it a little bit last week with Mike. Tough to remember now. You get this age, and it's hard to remember things sometimes. But, Trevor Lawrence has got to be saved. They have got to do something to save Trevor Lawrence down there. Because they really effed up his first season.
Yeah.
That rookie season was just awful. I'm not all that sure it's all Trevor Lawrence's fault. He was just in the middle of a, I guess, shitstorm is what they were calling it. It just was terrible. So Doug Peterson, they're hoping can come in and kind of settle that situation down in Jacksonville and do something to help get Lawrence back on the right track. And I guess if anybody is going to do it, he made Carson Wentz a winning quarterback for a while. So if anybody's going to do it, I think Doug Peterson is well positioned to do it. We'll see what they do around Trevor Lawrence in this draft. And we'll go from there. But, I think considering that you have a first-round quarterback who you have to try and start building some confidence inside of him, Peterson probably wasn't that bad of a choice.
I don't think we can underestimate what he brings being a Super Bowl winning coach too.
Yeah.
If he was going to an organization that has won the Super Bowl before or has had some success, like maybe the New York Giants, then it wouldn't matter as much. But this is a organization that really has not had a lot of success in 25 years. And especially in the last 10, 15 years, that one good season, they went to the championship game. But other than that, it's really been rough go for the Jaguars, and getting a coach that has won the Super Bowl brings, I think the guys are going to respect that. I think the players are going to respect Peterson in the locker room. And I think that'll be important for them.
Yeah, and Peterson won't be hanging around nightclubs in Cincinnati, and will take flights with the team, and Peterson's going to be good. He's not going to be kicking his place kicker on training camp or doing anything like that.
Right.
Urban Meyer, that is going to be a joke for years to come. I'm telling you, that really is.
Everything he did was a joke.
Yes,
will be for a while. He's one of the worst coaching hires ever, and Doug Peterson gets the privilege of being compared to him for a little while. So he's going to look really good.
He's going to look good, right? Very low bar set for Doug Peterson right now.
Right,
that bar is almost on the ground.
One other coach I forgot to mention, Nathaniel Hackett. Going from Green Bay to the Denver Broncos. And I think a lot of people are looking at that as a move. The Broncos are trying to lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver. I know he's not a free agent, but they're trying to get, Rodgers to want to come to Denver.
Well, apparently they tried it last year. So, yeah, I think this is more of an attempt. From what I've been reading, I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers might stay in Green Bay.
That's from what I read too. Yeah, that Green Bay is going to do what they can to keep him.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see because, yeah, I mean, Hackett, there's no quarterback there. You got Bridgewater and Drew Lock, and you've got to get the best out of one of them. And I don't know if there's much more best that we can get out of Teddy Bridgewater. Was that a real sentence? Was that a correct sentence?
Grammatically, probably not. But
okay, grammatically right.
We know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're correct. You are right that there's no more best to get out of Teddy Bridgewater. To Teddy's credit, he is what he is. And he is solid starter is probably too generous, but he's a decent starter that he's going to have his ups and downs.
Right.
And you put a decent team around him, then you can win some games. He's never going to win the Super Bowl.
No.
But can Nathaniel Hackett get the rest of the offense up to a level where Bridgewater is doing enough for them to be competitive in a division that's really tough?
Yeah, we'll see. As I say, free agency is going to be very interesting this year to see how things play out, especially among these teams who've just hired coaches. Because you're looking at Dennis Allen doesn't have a quarterback. Unless, Jameis Winston can come back. But Sean Payton was kind of able to rein Jameis Winston in, keep him from making as many mistakes, but Winston didn't make as many big plays either.
Yeah, I'm not sure Winston's going to go back there without Sean Payton. I think he's going to test free agency.
So do I. And Taysom Hill's career is over. Without Sean Payton there's no reason for a Taysom Hill. But
he beat the Falcons in Week 18, starting quarterback.
Yeah, but that was, I don't count that. Falcons were pretty much done by then. It was not good. But yeah, I mean, Brian Daboll gets the call in New York basically because of Daniel Jones. Right. They want to see if he can do with Daniel Jones what he did with Josh Allen in Buffalo. So, right. We'll see how well that works out. Kind of Josh McDaniels, I'm kind of surprised actually finally came out from under the, Bill Belichick's hoodie and decided to strike out on his own again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting coaching. It was an interesting coaching carousel. I think every single guy comes, maybe this is true every year, but it just seems like more true this year that every single guy comes with a negative, and some of the negatives aren't like going to be a huge impact to their teams. Like Josh McDaniels, I think the negative I have with him is just that he spurred the Colts a few years ago, went back to New England. I didn't think that was very honorable. He didn't have a great head coaching tenure with Denver.
Didn't have a great run in Denver.
But that was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's learned a lot since then, and I really shouldn't hold that against him. But I think I hear his name, and I'm like, well, I don't want him as my head coach. And, I just gave you the two reasons why, and that's really not relevant for Las Vegas.
Well, I don't know, because see, what he did with Indianapolis really says a lot to me about his character.
Will that impact his ability to coach Las Vegas, though?
Well, no, I guess not. But I guess he kind of gets under my skin more than he's going to get under the skin of
the players
and fans, but
yeah.
Because I agree with you. It was not an honorable thing to do. I think it was just the dirty thing to do that he did to Indianapolis. I think it showed maybe that he didn't have enough confidence in himself to move out again. And that might be a problem with Las Vegas. They might be looking at how much confidence does he bring to the field once they start, with training camp and going from there, seeing how he reacts to the players as they start OTAs and that kind of thing.
That's interesting point. Yeah, I agree that maybe that was an issue with him dealing with his own confidence 5 years ago. I believe that 4 years ago, I think it was 2018, where he decided not to take the Indianapolis Colts job after agreeing to take the Indianapolis Colts job. We have a question here. I wanted to get to more head coaches, but let's get to this question from Kevin. I believe he's a first-time commenter. A little off topic, but what reasonable trade could we get for Calvin if he's traded to the Eagles? I think we means the Falcons and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
I think the asking price is first-round pick, especially when you're dealing with the Eagles. The Eagles have 3 first-round picks. That shouldn't dictate the price too much, but you are dealing with a team that is blessed with draft capital right now, and they're probably more willing to say, okay, yeah, we'll give you a first-round pick for a player because we got 3 of them. We'll give you the worst one. And the Falcons probably don't care if it's the 20th, 21st pick or 15th pick. A first-round pick for Calvin Ridley after what happened this past season, I think would be a really nice pickup. And especially after, Julio Jones,
right?
Different situation, but Julio Jones not getting a first-round pick for the Falcons last year.
Yeah, I think right. And again, you're going to get a solid starter out of that. And that's all you can ask for. But yeah, I mean, you're going to get you can get a pick for Ridley, and I agree, it should be a first. Philadelphia needs receivers. They need to put a group of receivers around Jalen Hurts, and see what Hurts can do next year. It's kind of a make or break season for Hurts next year.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I think the Falcons right now need starters. They have got to find some starters on the defensive line, offensive line. They're in a bad spot right now. And so if they can get a number one, I think, go ahead and make that trade to Philadelphia and give yourself a chance to get an extra player in the draft.
Yeah, I think that would be great if the Falcons can pull off a trade like that with Calvin Ridley. Returning to and if there are any other Falcons questions, please send them our way. We can answer them in the last few minutes of the show.
We always talk about Dante Fowler. So
yeah. But until we get another question, we're just going to keep talking head coaches. I wanted to talk about Minnesota because we talked about we just mentioned McDaniels taking the Colts job 4 years ago and then not taking it. It sounded like Jim Harbaugh was all set to accept the job in Minnesota, and then Minnesota didn't offer it to him. So as an NFC North fan, how did you read that situation?
I think it was tough because it sounded like Harbaugh came in very self-assured and basically came in kind of with the attitude that he already owned the place. And I think that kind of went, I think that kind of hit the Vikings a little bit badly. They didn't care for that as much. I would have been interested to see what Harbaugh could have done with the Minnesota Vikings, but he comes across as very forward, as very arrogant, confident to the point of, as I say, he's very confident. And as I think I don't know the exact word I'm looking for here, but I think he put the Vikings brass off by thinking that he was going to come in. I think he was probably going to want some personnel control. And he was going to ask for some things as far as being, who he was, being a successful coach in San Francisco. And I think that kind of turned the Vikings off once he got in the building and talked to them. So
yeah, I read that too, and that the maybe there was an issue with the owners don't actually live in Minnesota. I forget where the Wolf family lives.
Yeah,
Probably
I don't remember.
Southern California or somewhere, super fancy. But they're too good for the cold of Minnesota. But they don't. That I read that was maybe an issue, that because they're not there, Harbaugh and the general manager might not be able to get along because Harbaugh wants some control that the general manager typically has. So,
and it's a new general manager,
right?
So it would be a rough situation for him.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd almost start out with a power struggle right from the start.
Yeah, yeah. So they don't hire Jim Harbaugh and they go with Kevin O'Connell instead. And I guess it depends on who you ask. I think some people thought that was a bad decision. I don't necessarily think it's a bad decision. I just spent the first half hour kind of dissing, Zach Taylor, who's probably the best branch on Sean McVay's coaching tree right now. So I guess I'm not a huge fan of his coaching tree yet, but I guess where you mentioned you being old school and some things. I think with coaching hires, the old school part of me likes hiring coordinators, not these retread coaches. Even if it's Jim Harbaugh, I like getting my own guy that hasn't been a head coach anywhere else. And Kevin O'Connell, I've attracted to him because of that he has a chance to, make the Vikings into his own, as opposed to Jim Harbaugh being this big personality coming in and wanting control of everything.
Yeah. It's going to be rough for O'Connell though in his first season. I don't think Vikings fans should expect much in the first season. They got a terrible cap situation.
Well, I also am looking at the Vikings not as this team that Jim Harbaugh can come in and make a Super Bowl contender. I think the Vikings are going to be one of the biggest rebuilds going into 2022. I don't think they should keep Kirk Cousins. It sounds like they're probably going to, but he is such a big cap hit, and they're not a team that's ready to compete even with the quarterback like Kirk Cousins. So I think they should, to me, firing their general manager and Mike Zimmer was a signal that they were ready to burn this to the ground, and they should burn it to the ground.
Yes,
they should let O'Connell start from scratch. Right. And that's why I think I like him better than Jim Harbaugh doing that, because Harbaugh wouldn't have wanted to.
No, he wouldn't have started from scratch. He wouldn't have wanted to jump in and let's see if we can overtake the Packers.
Right.
It's a terrible situation in Minnesota because of Kirk Cousins. He is owed. He's 21% of the Vikings cap next year. He's going to be owed $45 million.
Yeah.
And that's dead cap too, if he's not with the team. So you can spread. It's possible they can trade him. They would be on the hook for $10 million of which is signing bonus. And if a team they want to trade him to is willing to spread out that $35 million over 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years, you could probably get away with making a trade for him. That is not going to be an easy thing to do. You're not going to find a lot of teams. I can't think of too many teams that are going to want to make that kind of deal for Kirk Cousins. So you're stuck this year.
But again, you look at the situation as the alternative is have Kirk. I guess the alternative, you could just have Kirk Cousins play for your team and just see how it goes.
You're going to have to.
But I think one other, you could cut him, which isn't really an option because of the dead cap. But you could, rather than cutting him and rather than him being a lame duck, why don't you do a trade like you're saying and get something for him, even if it's not a high draft pick? You get something for him, you get him off your books, and you move forward with a new regime. That's what
I don't think it's going to be the matter of getting a draft pick. I think it's a matter of restructuring the contract and knowing that if you trade for Kirk Cousins, you've got him for another. You've got him a minimum of 3 seasons because you have to restructure that contract. If you trade for him, you don't want to be in a free agent next year. And nobody's going to take that $35 million because the Vikings will be on the hook for the $10 million signing bonus. Nobody's going to take that $35 million for 1 season, and then maybe have to go somewhere else, the following season. So Cousins going to have to be willing to renegotiate that deal. And then you got to be comfortable with having Kirk Cousins as your number 1 quarterback for 3 seasons. Yeah. And I don't know if many teams are comfortable with having Kirk Cousins as a starting quarterback. He's
okay. Yeah.
He's going to be 34 next season. He's still within an age range where he can be effective. I guess it depends on what other teams see in him, what they feel they can get out of him that the Vikings didn't.
Well, it'll help him and the Vikings that it's not a great quarterback draft class, and there really isn't any top name available in free agency. I mean, Jameis Winston's probably the best guy available. Jimmy Garoppolo, is Jimmy Garoppolo a free agent, or he's just going to be in the trade market?
I think he's going to be on the trade market.
Yeah. So
he's not a free agent.
I mean, we're talking, you can say, well, Aaron Rodgers is out there, Russell Wilson is out there, Jimmy Garoppolo is out there, but you have to trade for those guys.
Right. They're not really out there.
Right. Exactly. So if the guys that are really out there are like Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, and that isn't very good. And if you're a team that, look, I don't think Kirk Cousins is a guy that's going to win the Super Bowl, but if you are looking to upgrade your quarterback and you don't have a Kirk Cousins caliber guy on your roster already, you're probably not going to find a Kirk Cousins caliber guy in the draft or in free agency. So that'll help the Vikings.
Well, as I say, if they can restructure that Cousins contract, I think he would be a trade possibility. Does he go to Carolina? Maybe he goes to New Orleans. I mean, maybe, there are places that could probably use him.
Yeah.
Sure. If you can make their contract more palatable.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. It's the contract that's the issue. And as you lay out really nicely, and Larry Orange asks, is it the last year in his deal? Yes, it is. It is. Yes. And I believe he only had 1 year left in his deal last summer, if I remember correctly. And he was going to have a big contract, a big salary cap hit last year as well. And the Vikings reworked it with 1 year contract extension, which worked fine for 2021 salary cap. But now they're dealing with the same problem again.
Right.
And if they can extend him another year or two themselves and keep him as their starting quarterback. But again, the problem will be when that last year in the contract comes up, he's going to be owed like $50 million.
Yes.
And that's why I say just burn it all to the ground. You're not competing right now.
No.
Take the loss now with the contract, try and restructure it and trade him or cut him, or I guess just let him be a lame duck and then move forward with the team.
He would be a lame duck. I mean, that's it. But they've got to come up with salary cap space somewhere. Having him controlling 21% of your cap space is just untenable.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rough to begin building anything this year if you can't get that contract. And as I say, the Vikings don't want to renegotiate their contract. I think the Vikings would rather move on from Kirk Cousins.
Right.
They made their own problem. You're right, Dave. I mean, they made their own problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's how we have to view Kevin O'Connell's hire within this prism of Kirk Cousins and the team being able to build, because O'Connell isn't going to be really given anything to work with in his first season, even if Cousins is there.
Right.
So, you can say that O'Connell has a better quarterback than almost any of the other coaching hires.
Except for Justin Fields. Yeah.
Except for Justin Fields. All right. I'll leave out Justin Fields. But, I mean, I think Cousins is better than Daniel Jones. He's better than whoever New Orleans has, better than whoever Houston has, better than whoever Denver has. So, like, he is – O'Connell's going to have the quarterback if Cousins stays, but that's it because of that ridiculous contract that you bring up.
That's it.
So we got to wrap up here, but we do have a couple questions from Falcons fans, and I want to do a rankings of the coaching hires because that's what we promised. I'll do top 3 for me right now. I'm going to have Brian Dable at 1. I'll do Josh McDaniels at 2 and Doug Peterson at 3. Those are going to be my top 3. And maybe I'll change them next week, but those are the 3 that I like.
Yeah, still early. I'm going to say Brian Dable because I think, he gives the Giants the most hope that they can still get something out of Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
I like Matt Eberflus with the Bears. I'm going to rate him as second. I think that was a solid hire. And Doug Peterson with Jacksonville because they've got to save Trevor Lawrence somehow. Mm-hmm. They just have no choice. He was a first overall pick. You've got to do something to save him after you gave him such a terrible first year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Doug Peterson gives them that chance of making him into a star like he should be. Thomas Doe asks, can the Falcons make the playoffs next season? And Kevin actually answered that question, giving his opinion to Thomas. The Falcons should make the playoffs since the South is going to be weak. Trading Calvin for a first and getting another good defensive piece should make it easier. And, I would agree with Kevin. The division is going to be weaker. No Tom Brady, no Sean Payton. Can the Falcons win the division or compete? They should. And, I think this is going to be a good offseason for the Falcons. They're still in salary cap problems, but with some draft picks, if they hit on those guys and the draft picks they made last year continue to improve, I think Kyle Pitts will be better and make up for the loss of Calvin Ridley a little bit better than he did the second half of this year. And, I think the Falcons – you're putting me on the spot, but I think the Falcons are going to be competing for a playoff.
I think the Falcons can compete. I mean, you got 3 teams with no quarterbacks.
And then Matt Ryan.
Carolina, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans. I mean, just no quarterbacks.
Right. And that could change. One of those teams could
change.
Go off a trade or for Kirk Cousins or something, or sign somebody.
Could happen.
But as of right now, I mean, Matt Ryan is clearly the best quarterback in the division.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, for me, that's where it starts. Best quarterback wins. All other things being equal, best quarterback wins. So the Falcons do have an advantage going into next season right now, considering they have a quarterback who they know they can win with. So
thank you for all the comments, guys. We love hearing from you. Keep sending them during the week at TJ Pollen, at DM Holcomb on Twitter. Check out the other videos on Atlanta Sports Unlimited YouTube channel. I should drop our sponsor, Prize Picks. Didn't mention that today because we have no games to preview our Prize Picks. But if you sign up for Prize Picks, playing other sports games,
you play basketball.
And I've done hockey a couple times. It's fun. When you sign up, use the promo code ASU. That gets a 100% match on your first deposit. Real easy to play. Download Prize Picks in your app store and use that promo code to get started.
Yeah, a lot of people play this fantasy basketball stuff, so I'm not as up on it, and I would get killed if I tried to play it. But, if you're good at it, if you know your basketball, that's the thing to do. Go to Prize Picks and play.
Absolutely. And you'd be supporting our YouTube channel. So we would really appreciate you signing up and using that promo code ASU. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Chris for producing the show. We'll be back next Saturday at noon Eastern time.